Hello, Kenneth. Can you hear me? If you can you kindly type yes in the chat box? All right, all right. Sorry, I'll get started soon. I'm trying to set up some little things. All right. So let's get started. Mm, Firstly, if you okay, how many of you guys are actually following along with your laptop beside you or something? Hello, V. How about now? Can you hear me now? Probably it's my network or something. All right. Let me try and increase my volume. Okay, so can you hear me now? Okay, so how about now? All right. So let's get started. So for those of you that haven't used any 3D modeling, for those of you that haven't used any 3D modeling software, okay, okay. So for those of you that haven't used any 3D modeling software, I think on the WhatsApp group I actually mentioned that the software I'll be using for this tutorial is called Blender. And if you haven't installed it, you can just open your browser and go to www.blender.org to and download that. Yeah, my apologies. I think sorry, my voice is kind of low, so you just have to bear with me like that. So if you can hear me, type PS in the chat box so I can get started. All right, I'll try as much as possible to be louder than usual. So, uh, to get started installing the software, on opening it, this the interface you'll be welcomed with. You will see something like this. So to just once you click any other place outside this box you can see here, once you just click any other place to take you to the 3D viewports. This scene you are seeing right here. So this scene you are seeing right here where this cube is called the 3D viewports. This side at the this menu here at this side is called the properties panel. This one at this side here is called the properties panel, sorry, and this one up here is called the outliner. So for now I want to show you, and the first thing I want to do is to show you guys how to navigate within this 3D viewport. uh, I think I actually mentioned that you would need a mouse, something like, yeah, let me increase this so you can see clearer. So you need something like this with a middle mouse button here, because I was supposed to be using for navigation mostly, a right click and a left click. So now so let's continue. So to navigate, like to orbit around your 3D object, what you need to do, you need to hold down the middle mouse button. This button right in the center here. You hold it down and you move your mouse. That's to view the object in the 3D viewport. So to pan around the scene, to pan, that's like to move from left to right or from any view, to move in this kind of way. What you need to do is hold down shift, the shift key on your keyboard, hold down the middle mouse button and move your mouse around. To zoom in, all you need to do is to roll this mouse scroll wheel. Once you roll it, your object will zoom in and zoom out, irrespective of the view you are. So let's assume it's like this. Once I roll my mouse scroll wheel, it will zoom in. Once I roll it downwards, it will zoom out. So for those of us that are actually familiar with video game, there's a way you can navigate in Blender that's quite similar to most video games navigation. So that is yeah. So to navigate like in a video, like when you navigate in video games format, what you need to do is to click on this view right at the top, at the left hand side of the screen. Click on view, come down to navigation, and click on, sorry, view, navigation, and click on walk navigation. So now in this way, you can move forward with W, you can move backward with S, you can move to the left with D, and you can move to the right with A on your keyboard. So that's W for front, S for back, D to move to the right, and A to move to the left, just like in most video games. So There are some other additional movement. So if you move your mouse around, just move your mouse, you can look around, just like, yeah, exactly like video games. For those of us that are familiar with video games, Q to move downward and E to move upward. So let's assume I want to view the cube from the top view. I would use E to go forward, rotate my mouse, E to go upward, W to move forward, and then now I can see the top part of my cube. But yeah, that's actually way too, while working, to always be going to the navigation and going to work navigation is actually more stressful. So the easiest way to do it is to use your middle mouse button. And actually, there's another way you can navigate apart from the middle mouse button and the work navigation. If you look at this gizmo right here, where you can see the axis, the X, Y, and Z axis, if you click on it and move your mouse, you can rotate it as you wish. You can actually go to each of the view. To go to the front view, you just have to click on the Y button here. To go to the side view, you click on the X. To go to the top view, you click on W, and you can view it from different views. So there are also shortcuts in Blender, but for that I'll talk about that later on in the class. So now that we've discussed navigation, the next thing I want to show is how to move the object in 3D space. So to move your object now, all you need to do is to click on this tool here. This is a move tool. And in case you're not seeing this side panel in your application, you can bring it out and hide it by pressing T on your keyboard, letter T. So if you press T, it would hide, and if you press T, it would bring it out. So make sure this move tool is activated. Click on the object you wish to move, and you will see all these arrows on your object. So to move it, you can just click on any of the arrow and move it along the axis. So the green arrow is for the y axis, the red arrow is for the x axis, and the z arrow and the blue arrow is for the z axis. So let's assume you've moved it away from the center, let's say away from the screen or something. So long as the object is selected, if you press Alt G on your keyboard, it will reset the object to the initial position. And let's assume you've moved the object away from the scene and you can't locate it to select it and it's not selected. So Alt G definitely would not bring it back. What you can do is to go into this panel here and click and select the cube, this outliner. Then you select the cube by clicking on it and press Alt G to reset the location. So that's to move. To rotate, let's say you want to rotate your cube, all you need to do is to select the rotate option here and you would see all these lines, all these curves actually, and you can use them to rotate your cube. So this red curve here is rotated on the x-axis, the green curve is rotated on the y-axis, and the blue curve is rotated on the along the z-axis. So you would also see a white curve, a white circle around it. This white green is rotate on the y, and if you use the blue, it will rotate on the z. Also, to reset rotation, the shortcut is Alt R. R on your keyboard. That is R for rats. And to scale, use the scale tool here. So if you click on it, you will see all these lines. Those are for scaling the object. So to scale it on each axis, let's assume you want to scale it on the y-axis. You use the green line to scale it on the y-axis. Use the blue line to scale it on the z-axis, and you use the red line to scale it on the x-axis. To reset the scale, you press the Alt key on your keyboard and S to reset the scale. So and now, if you let's assume you want to scale it on two axes at the same time, the x and the y axis, you can click on this blue line and scale it. To scale on two axes at the same time, or to scale it on the, you can also click on this red line and scale it on, that's the uh, z and y axis, and you can also scale it on the z and x axis altogether. So that's for scaling the object. To reset the scale, you press Alt S. So now I want to show you the shortcuts for all these operation I've just showed you. So if you bring your mouse over this move to, you would see a pop-up. Then you see the shortcuts for the move, which is G. So if you press G on your keyboard, it will move to some other position. You press G to move. When you move it to that particular position, you just click to set it there. To reset the position, you press Alt G. That is G to move, Alt G for to reset the location. So same thing with rotation. If you bring your mouse over the rotation, you will see R. That is the shortcut for rotating. So if you press R to rotate, it would rotate the cube. So also you can also rotate you can also move, rotate or scale on a particular axis. If you press G to move and you press X to move, it would lock the movement to just the X axis. Or if you press G to move and Y to move, it will lock the movement to just the Y axis. Same thing with the Z axis, G and Z. So same thing with rotation. Press R to rotate and X, it will rotate along the X axis. Press R to rotate and Y, it will rotate along the Y axis. And if you press R to rotate and Z, it will rotate along the Z axis. And also for scaling, the same thing. S to scale, that's to increase and reduce the size of the cube. So you can also scale on a particular axis. That's S to scale and X. It would lock the scaling to that X axis. Or if you press Y, it should lock the scale to the Y axis. Or if you press Z, it would lock the scaling to just the Z axis. So now, in order to understand this axis better, let me go to the front view. I would also explain these views later on. So let me go to the front view now. The x-axis is left and right. The z-axis is up and down, and the y-axis is forward and backward. So now there are some shortcuts in Blender for going into the front view, side view, and top view. So now you need to be able to use this shortcut. You need to have a keyboard with extra buttons. That is the numpad. But in case your keyboard does not have a numpad, there's a settings you can do where you can replicate the same action with the numbers right above at the top of your keyboard. So to do that, you click on Edit, go to your Preferences, and under Input, all you need to do is to click on Emulate Numpad. Make sure this button is checked. Then you can close it, and when you press 1, it goes to the front view. 3, it will go to the side view, and 7, it go to the top view. So the next thing I want to show you is how to add an object to your 3D viewport. Since we started, we were working with just a cube. So to add a new object, all you need to do is click on Add right here at the top left corner of your screen. You will see the Add option. You click on Add. What we'll be working with mostly is a mesh. So if you click on Add, go to Mesh, you will see these primitive shapes. So some of the default shapes you can add is the plane, cube, cycle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus, and monkey. So for me, I have some other shapes here. That's because I've actually activated some add-ons in Blender, which is not actually necessary for now. So the object I want to add next is the monkey. So if I just click on this, it has added the monkey to my scene. But as you can see, the monkey head is inside the cube. So we can just click on this arrow right here and drag it up to see the monkey. So let's add another object. You can click on Add, Mesh, and let's add a torus. So you can move this out. So let's add another object. Add Mesh and a UV sphere. Let's move this here. So I'm just moving it by clicking on the arrow because this move tool is active. So I click on the arrow and just pull it out of the cube. So any object you add by default would add to the center of the 3D viewport. So if I click on add again, add another object, and let's say a cylinder. Let me move this on the y-axis. So I can also move the cube backward, just like this. So if I add any other objects to just add here, add mesh, and let me add a cone. So basically that's how to add objects to your scene. So now the next thing I'll show you is how to delete objects. How to delete objects. So to delete a particular object in the scene, okay, yeah, V. There's actually a shortcut for work navigation. No, I don't think there's a shortcut, but you can set a shortcut if you feel like. So to do that, you go to view, uh, navigation, and okay, sorry, view, navigation, and when you come down to work navigation, all you need to do is to right click and click on assign shortcuts. So let's assume I want to use the M key. Okay, no, let me look for a key that does not actually have any function in Blender. So let's assume I want to use the comma key on my keyboard for the work navigation shortcut. Click on assign shortcut and just press comma on my keyboard. So now, if I'm in a 3D viewport, once I press comma, so oh sorry, there's actually a shortcut assigned to comma. So let me go to view, uh, navigation, and work navigation. Right click and assign shortcuts. Change shortcut. So let me use a different shortcut. Let me use shift J as my shortcut. Shift and J on my keyboard. So you can use multiple keys as a shortcut. You can use Alt Shift J. You can just anything that suits you. So if I press Shift J, by default it should go to the work navigation. So if I move my mouse around, you can see that I'm looking around the 3D viewport. If I press W, you can see that it's moving front. So also you can, something I failed to mention earlier, you can increase the speed of your work and of your work animation, of your work and navigation rather. So if I press W to move forward and I roll my mouse scroll wheel upward, you notice it move forward faster. Or if I use A to go sideward, it moves faster. So to reduce the speed, I'll just roll my mouse scroll wheel down and it will start moving slowly. E to go upward and Q to go downward. So once you're done with navigating, you can either, there are two ways of deleting. You can, okay, there are multiple ways of deleting actually, not just two. So if you right click, you will see the delete option here, and you see that the shortcut for deleting is X. So you can either select an object, right click and delete. Select an object, right click and delete, or you can just select an object and press X on your keyboard to bring out this option and you click on delete to delete it. Another alternatively, you can just select an object, press the delete button on your keyboard and it will delete that object. So that is different, three different methods of deleting that I've showed you guys. So let me add some objects back. Let me add in a cube, add in a icosphere, add in a cylinder, and add in a cone. So now let's assume instead of deleting each object one by one, you want to select multiple objects and delete all of them together. What you need to do is to hold down the shift key on your keyboard and click on each of the objects you wish to delete. So no, you wish to select rather, to select multiple objects. So if you hold down the shift button on your keyboard and click on multiple objects, it will select all the objects as you are clicking on them. So with multiple objects selected, you can move them all together with the arrow key. You can also rotate everything together and you can scale everything together. And also you can also delete everything together. X to delete and delete. So let's undo that. Another shortcut for selecting, like let's assume you want to select everything together. Let me click on. So if you click on an empty space, automatically to deselect the object. So another shortcut to select everything in the viewport, you press A on your keyboard. So now, in case you cannot remember all these shortcuts, there are other alternatives to selecting all the objects. So if you click on select and click on all, it will select. Let's assume nothing selected. You click on select and click on all. It selects everything. So if you want to deselect everything, you can also click on select and click on none. It will deselect everything. So let's delete everything in the viewport now. So I click on select and all to select everything. Then I right click and delete. It will delete everything in the scene. So now with the little stuff that we've learned, let's try to create a let's try to create a model actually. Let's say, so to start with, let me try. Let's say for now, let's create a house, like a mini house. So shift A to add, can add in a cube. That's for the uh, main body of the house. So shift A to add again, and for the roof, I would use a cone. So now after adding a cone, before clicking anything, there's usually a pop-up whenever you add in a new object in Blender. That is this add pop-up here. So by default, it's actually minimized, so you can maximize it by clicking on this arrow here, and you will see a whole lot of options there. So most of this option actually affects the general shape of the object immediately after adding it. So for now, let me delete everything and explain it better. So shift A to add, and I add in a cone. So what makes up these cones? There are stuff known as vertices, faces, edges. So we'll come to that later on. So for now, in the vertices menu, you can see that there are 32 vertices for this cone. So these vertices are the amount of edges here. All these sharp edges you are seeing. They are there are 32 in total. So if we reduce this to 4, you can see that it's more like a pyramid now. That's with 4 edges. So we can reduce it to 2. Okay, I think 3 is the minimum actually for a cone. If you want to use 2, that is just 2 edges. So that's more like a triangular prism. So the more you increase this, the more edges your cone would have. So not just this is not just for the vertices. You can also increase the radius, bottom radius, the top radius, which by default should be 0. The depth, that's like the height, and also this fill type, that's for the under. If you want it to be empty, you can select nothing, it will be empty. If you want it to be filled, you can select end gun, you can select triangles. They both fill the face here. So whichever object you add would have a different add menu depending on the object. So let's do this. We add in a cube. You will see that the cube don't have those vertices, because by default cubes have 12 faces and all like that. So you can also increase the size of the cube, change the location, and all. Same thing with cylinder. Yeah, same thing with cylinder. They have different pop-up menu. So now for the house that I want to model, we would use for the roof. Let's start with the roof actually. Let's use a cone. Reduce the vertices to 4, so it would have 4 edges. And for the depth, let it not be this high, let it be a bit squashed. And for the bottom radius, let's increase it a bit to, let me say, 2, okay, 2.5 meters. And if I click that, you can see that it's now more wider. You can see, let's increase the depth. I think it's looking too squashed. So now we can rotate. We know that if we add in our cube, the cube would be something like in this form. So let's align this. Okay, firstly, let's move the pyramid or the roof upward a bit. Then to add in a cube, click on add, mesh, and cube. So add in a cube. So let's move this cube up to meet the pyramid. So now you can see the roof is facing a completely wrong direction. From the roof is facing this way, while the building itself is this direction. So to align the roof with the building, all we need to do is to select the roof by clicking on it and going to the rotate option. So we want to rotate it on the z axis, that is the blue curve. So if you click the blue curve and rotate, you can set it to be straight. But one more thing I can do is to hold down control when we are rotating, so it should snap to a particular angle. So if you look, Yeah, so we can rotate it to something like this. And now if we look, it's actually the same perspective with the cube. So we can move it downward a bit so to fit the cube. And if you actually follow along, there you go. This is your first model in Blender. So you have so now all that's left is for you to use your creative freedom. You can scale it down to, let's say if you want it to have a smaller roof, or you can also scale it on the Z axis if you want the roof to be long or squash, depending on your preference. And oh, so